Good to welcome you back for another week. This week we're going to do something a little more fun than, I believe, a Newsella reading. So on the fun stuff assignment for Thursday, we're going to do a Nearpod, but it's going to be a much more detailed Nearpod than we ever did in the classroom. So I need to introduce this Nearpod to you with a video so that you understand how the assignment relates to what's embedded in Nearpod and then the reflection that I want you to do after the Nearpod. So this video is going to explain how to do that so that you understand the functionality of the technology so that you don't miss anything. So that's what I'm really after today. I'm after you all understanding very clearly how to navigate through the Nearpod and what to do afterwards in order to do the reflection on the video. So let's get started. I'm going to move through fairly quickly. You're very familiar with this. This is your weekly routine. Monday, Tuesday, it's the textbook. We're going to go through the textbook lesson by lesson. This week there's a lot to cover in the textbook. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I'm not going to ask you to do tons and tons of questions on the textbook's quiz, but I do want to know that you have been through the textbook. So this video is for both my world history and my US history students. So you're going to be covering different chapters, different lessons in the textbook, but regardless, I need you to move through that fairly quickly on Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday and Thursday is when you're going to be doing this Nearpod, on Wednesday or Thursday. It's not a two-day assignment, and it's Monday or Tuesday. I don't care which day you do it, as long as, and you're familiar with this now, it's Tuesday at midnight when everything is considered late as far as the textbook, I call it the Tuesday textbook test. And then Thursday at midnight is when the fun stuff assessment is due, and it's considered late after 11:59 on Thursday. And then on Friday, there's going to be a module test this week. There's not going to be a sway assignment this week because we're moving through fairly quickly. So that's going to be, at least I know that's the case for my US history students. World history students, I'm not quite sure what's happening on Friday here. I've got them conflated in my mind, so I can't really tell. Once again, this is always over my head here. So you can remember Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. So always follow the calendar, the modules. So you'll see this in the, this is accessible from your dashboard. So in your dashboard view, you get to see the to-do list, you get to see the coming up list, and you get to see the due dates very, very clearly when you're looking at it from the dashboard view, but it can be confusing as to what order to do it in. So this is a nice reference, but it is not your final reference. And then you can finally get the calendar view. And although the calendar view is handy, it is not your final determination on what you do and when you do it. The final determination is the module view in Canvas. So when you go to module view, you'll always see a Monday and Tuesday, and then you'll always see a Wednesday and Thursday, and then you'll always see a Friday. This is the end-all final say. This has the final say on what is due in a week. So when you see the to-do lists and the coming up lists, and you look at the calendar list, the calendar should follow this. If you look at a Tuesday, there should be something due on a Tuesday, and it should follow the module view. If you see a Thursday on your calendar, it should have your Thursday assessment here. And it may have some of your to-do items, which are not technically assignments, they're just to-do reading pages. So you read the page and you get instructions from me. That shows up on your to-do list because I can make a page, I can make reading a page something that you have to do on the calendar. It's not an assessment. But this view here, through the module view, this tells you what is your assessment due on Tuesday at midnight, what is your assessment due on Thursday at midnight, and what's going to be due on Friday before the end of your school day, which is going to be considered late at midnight on Sunday. All right? So always come back to the module view, and if you don't know what order to do it in, just click on the top item and click Next in the bottom right-hand corner, and it will take you through everything in order so that you are doing things in order. All right? Always come back to that. All right, for today, the Nearpod dropping the atomic bomb. This is for both classes. Now, my U.S. history students, you're in the 1960s and cultural change. Cultural change in the 1960s was related to the Cold War and this constant threat of a nuclear bomb being dropped on the United States by Russia, and us having to retaliate by dropping nuclear bombs on Russia or Warsaw Pact nations who were attacking us with nukes. We were never going to do the first strike, but we had enough sensors out there by the 1960s that we would know anywhere on Earth if somebody launched a missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. We still do. So this constant threat shaped the 1950s and the 1960s, and young people in the 1960s that went berserk, and they retaliated against the war in Vietnam, and they retaliated against society trying to tell them this is the proper way to live. And all of that was a rejection of the constant fear in their life of nuclear war. So that's what the U.S. history students, that's why you're doing this assignment. For my world history students, we're in the middle of studying the Cold War, so you need to understand this is what it was like during the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is what it was like living in Europe in the shadow of the Iron Curtain. You never knew if anybody was going to pull the trigger. If you lived in Europe, you didn't have nuclear technology, and you had to worry about if the United States was going to use it or if Russia was going to use it. The United States said we weren't going to use it, but at one point in time, we had 70,000 nuclear warheads. Compare that to today, where we only have 3,750 nuclear warheads. All right, so we have had these SALT treaties, which was the strategic nuclear arms denuclearization and the destruction of nuclear weapons, so that we're down now to 3,750, as if 3,750 wouldn't destroy the Earth. You're going to watch a video at the end here that's going to make it very clear what one nuclear bomb can do, and that is your reflection today, is to reflect on what kind of destruction one nuclear bomb would do to the world as you know it. So that's why we're studying this, and this is how it shapes, and this is why U.S. history and world history students are both doing the same assignment, because this Cold War spanned decades. It went on for decades. All right, so this Nearpod assignment will be synchronized to Pinnacle. There's 100 points within the Nearpod assignment questions, and then there's another 50 points that you need to do immediately upon finishing this Nearpod assignment. That's going to be the Thursday assessment, which is what you see here. The module 23B is my world history module. For my U.S. history students, it'll be module 14. All right. The Nearpod starts just like this. It'll provide your name because you are a Broward County Public Schools student. Your name should appear automatically here in Nearpod. If it doesn't, go back up to Clever, launch Nearpod, and then relaunch this. But I believe everybody has, at least in the classroom, this worked. You just went in, it said, hey, is this you? And you said, yes, join session. You do not have to put anything in the other line. Just if your name appears there, that's all I need. Just click on join session right here. All right, once you join the session, you navigate through Nearpod. Most of you should remember this. Comes up with the title page. You navigate it with the right arrow, and you can go back with the left arrow. In most cases, until you get to a quiz, you'll just be going forward. But when you get to the quiz, you may have to go backwards and use the left arrow. So that's how you navigate through this. When you get into here, it goes through a bunch of credits, and it says this is what you're going to learn. These are the objectives. This is what we want you to achieve and get out of this video. And then you reach this page here where you have your first question. And the question says, read the following scenario, right up here. Read the following scenario and then identify which of the two choices you would opt for. And you have choice A and choice B. But where's the scenario? Well, the scenario is up here in the top right corner. So click on this reading assignment and it'll blow it up big like this. So the scenario that you're going to imagine happening 4 years from now is that in the year 2024, the United States is approaching the end of a long and costly war with Syria. Okay, so we are still at war with Syria. Donald Trump has gotten us out of the war with Syria. We just kind of bailed out. So this scenario here is assuming we would have stayed in. So the teacher who created this Nearpod would have definitely been within their reason to project that we are still in a war with Syria by the year 2024. And it still could be. I mean, if the Turks get out and the Russians get out and things start to deteriorate, and if terrorism and Al-Qaeda and ISIS resurges, then we're going to be back in Syria, okay? And the generals predict that the war will likely take 6 months and cost about 8,000 American soldiers' lives if they choose to continue with the slow but successful ground invasion. Recently, so we're assuming now we don't have nuclear technology, but in this scenario, let's assume that in this war in Syria, we just brand new invented the atomic bomb. All right, so recently the US has developed a new weapon that can vaporize an entire city. This new weapon, if used on the Syrian city of Aleppo, could end the war tomorrow, resulting in the death of 10,000 innocent civilians who live alongside the enemy combatants stationed there. Unfortunately, Syria does not believe the US has developed this weapon, and they are willing to use it. Nor do they believe even if they do believe we created the weapon, they don't believe we would be willing to use it to kill 10,000 civilians. Therefore, the US is left with these two options. Now this makes more sense. So let's go back to the question and answer A or B right here. And then you have to advance. But do not use the blue arrow to advance. Use the submit button first. Because until you click submit, it won't put your answers in the record. So you need to put your answers into the record so that it will know whether you got them right or not. So when you advance, the question here was not a multiple choice question. It's called a poll. Okay, so when it advances into these, it'll say, this is a poll, meaning that what's your opinion? Both questions are valid. I mean, both options are valid. That's what a poll is saying. If you had these choices, how would you choose? Because there's no wrong answer. It's just your opinion. So that's what's called a poll. So that first question is called a poll. Now this one here is an open-ended question here, and it asks, how does this scenario relate to the concepts of island hopping in the Pacific theater of World War II? All right, so now you have to write me a sentence or two that says, losing 8,000 soldiers, if the US advances onto Aleppo on the ground, we're going to lose 8,000 soldiers. The strategy which MacArthur was faced with as he had gone island hopping all the way to Okinawa was, do we go from Okinawa to the mainland, Japan and Tokyo, continuing to island hop where we lose lots and lots and lots of soldiers, thousands of soldiers would be lost if we continued to island hop. So we're sitting in Okinawa, and you get word that the United States has just finished and tested the Manhattan Project, and it worked. It's a crazy, powerful bomb. And Japan knows they're losing at this point in time. We are in Okinawa. We are within striking distance of the mainland. They are desperate. They've lost 100,000 soldiers where we've lost only 10,000. They've lost planes. They are resorting to kamikaze pilots flying their planes loaded with bombs into ships. They're so desperate. They don't even have weapons anymore. We've taken their fuel. We've taken their ability to manufacture stuff. We have severely crippled their economy. People are starving back in Japan, but they won't give up. And so they've lost 100,000 soldiers while we've lost 10,000 soldiers. They can't keep this up for very long, but they are. It's crazy that they're doing it. So at this point, MacArthur is saying, we need to end this war, and this bomb will do it. All right, so how is island hopping back in 1945 similar to this scenario of invade Aleppo by ground? Tell me your opinion. All right, when you are done this, once again, click submit. Don't hit advance. If you hit advance, it won't submit your answer. I won't be able to read it because it won't record your answer. Submit is how you record your answer for me to read it. All right? Now, this is a little mini PowerPoint in the middle of Nearpod, so you have to click on the 1, 2, 3, 4 slides. All right, so read them all. You know when they do a slideshow like this, they're going to follow it with a question. So don't go into the question without knowing the information, learning what they want you to learn here. This is tiny little bites of information. They're chopping it up into easily remembered bites, bite-sized pieces. All right, this is like eating Cheez-Its rather than eating a cheese sandwich. You get cheese one bite at a time. All right, so read these 4 things and advance, and there will be another question. Now, this here up in the top right-hand corner is a little tool that will actually read it for you. So if there's some words in there that you're not familiar with and you want the Nearpod program to read it for you, you can be lazy and it's like karaoke. So it will actually show the word with white background as it advances through and reads this to you. So if you want it to read to you, click on this icon up here. It's not on every slide, but this is the read aloud button that it'll read for you, and then you can pretend you're doing karaoke. All right. So that's available to you all through Nearpod. The Think, Pair, Share is something meant for a live session if we were in a classroom, or if I could get you all online at the same time, which would not be fair because some of you cannot get online at any set hour. All right, and it's too hard for me to schedule it. So I'm going to try and do this Think, Pair, Share. I am going to, so these pages come up blank. I think there's 3 pages at this point in time that says your teacher has not enabled this function. So just advance through with the right blue arrow. So advance through, but when it comes back up to a poll, sometimes you see a star burst in the middle that says poll, or open-ended question, or quiz. If you're advancing through quickly, it will go boom right through there and you will miss the whole quiz. So if you see that little thing spinning in the middle there, it's loading in the background. Give it a minute. You might have a slow internet connection, so don't hit the blue arrow too soon or you'll miss the whole quiz question or the open-ended question, and that's not going to serve you well because I'm just going to think you're lazy and didn't bother answering it. I'm not going to know that you didn't know that it was loading the question, so wait. All right, give it some time. If you have a slow internet connection, or if the internet's busy, or if the school server is busy, give it some time to load. So when you see the thing loading in the middle, if you see that blue thing in the middle and it's just there, that does not mean go next. It means wait. All right, thanks. Good, understand. Here's another PowerPoint presentation slide scenario. This is a whole bunch of sources. These are document-based questions. These are original documents from the period of time. These are the favorite things that teachers put on tests. So we need to have you familiar with what people were saying at the time. These are arguments on both sides, pros and cons, in favor or not in favor. Should we drop the bomb? Should we not drop the bomb? Is it right to drop the bomb? Is it morally wrong to drop the bomb? What is the Japanese point of view? Are they going to hate us forever and ever and ever because we did this? Is the rest of the world going to hate the United States because we did this? So weigh both sides, go through all of the slides. In this case here, there are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slides. Read them all. It's a lot of reading, I know. And as you can see up here in the top right corner, this one is not available as a read aloud. The teacher did not put this in with a mechanism of read aloud. All right. Once again, here's another scenario where the question is up here, very, very tiny. And the options are A, B, C, D, E. And you'll say, what's an A? What's a B? What's a C? Well, it's up here in this corner. So you have to bring that down and read it. And it will say, on a scale of drop the bomb to do the ground invasion, we're moving from A, absolutely, definitely drop the bomb. B, yeah, probably drop the bomb. C, I can't decide. D, no, we probably shouldn't drop the bomb, and definitely do a ground invasion for E. So it's going to ask you, based on that scenario A, B, C, D, what would you do? There's no wrong answer. This is a poll. Once again, there's no correct answer here. The This is what they call participation, and we're going to talk about this at the end. So your grade here isn't on whether you chose B or whether you chose E. Your grade here is on whether you chose anything at all, and you thought about it and you participated, okay? Just let me know where your opinion is. It's important to me to know, what are students thinking in this day and age? I teach 150 students in a year. It's important for me to know, oh my God, these students are really war hawks because they all want to drop nukes. Or these students are all doves. They don't want too many people to die. All right. So once you hit your choice here, I chose, I'm not a D. Technically, I'm not a D. I just clicked a button, so don't think Mr. Leavitt's a D. No, Mr. Leavitt is not a D. I'm probably on the other side of things because I needed the war to end. The Japanese were not being rational. So I'm probably a B rather than a D. But I just clicked D just to be on through it here. All right? Once again, hit submit. Don't hit advance arrow. Hit submit. That records your answer and you get your participation grade. If you hit the right arrow, you won't get your participation grade because it won't record an answer at all. All right, now this is where we get some really cool stuff. Nearpod has, they call this the VR, a VR virtual reality Nearpod. So if you see anything on Nearpod, if you're just browsing around and you're really bored and you want to just do something fun and look at some really cool pictures, go into Nearpod yourself and look for VR, virtual reality. So they will, this allows you to use your mouse and scroll and look 360 degrees around this standing position where you're at. And here you can see the atomic dome. This is the only building that stayed standing. They have preserved it. They've strengthened it. I mean, it was ready to fall down after the bomb, but because it was the only thing that was left standing within miles, they preserved it and they strengthened it so that it wouldn't fall. So this has been reinforced so that it could stand for, well, now it's been 65 years. 45. 75 years. So this has been standing now 75 years. So it's been reinforced, and it is an iconic and very somber place to visit. My son has been there to visit it. And so it is a peace park, which means that you go there to reflect. This is not a park where you go and have a picnic. All right. So take a view and see how beautiful this area is. And then the next is also a virtual reality tour of the Air Force Museum. And it's a weird, it's a weird concept that we have kept the planes and preserved them in museums. The planes that dropped the atomic bombs. We want to look at the plane and say, this is the plane that killed 80,000 people in Nagasaki. So this one is not the one that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. This is not the one that dropped the first bomb. This is Boxcar with a weird spelling. You'll see it on the side of the plane. This is one that dropped the second bomb. One was called Fat Man and Little Boy or something. So I think that was, I always get it mixed up, Fat Boy or Little Man. I think it's Fat Boy and Little Man. Or Fat Man and Little Boy. I never remember. That's the autistic brain. I know about it, but I gotta Google it. So this is the one that dropped the second bomb on Nagasaki and all the rest of the airplanes that are in that museum. Is it right that we keep these planes? I think it asks that question here. All right, the legacy of radiation. Here is another 6-slide presentation where you have to go through it, look at pictures, read about it. This is how bad the suffering was. This is not easy reading for me. This is like, oh my God, this was bad. All right, really, really bad. The suffering was unimaginable after the bombs. Had we known how many people would suffer and what they would go through afterwards, I don't think even the United States would have dropped the bombs. But we didn't know. We'd only tested it in a desert and blown up a house and a barn and measured a few places with the thermometer and the wind speeds. And still, without knowing how bad it would actually be, we dropped 2 bombs. This tells you how bad it was. It was pretty bad. All right. Here is another quiz. This one's actually for a grade. It says, what is the right order? A, B, C, D, or A, B, C, or D. So you close this window with that X, answer the question, hit submit, and off you go. If, in this case here, I accidentally hit the arrow because I was just leafing through and I wanted to see how, okay, where's the video? And so I went actually through and I hit the right arrow because I was just looking for the video. And it said, hey, you haven't answered this question. So if you get this warning, it's like, oh, yes, no, I do not want to leave yet. I need to answer the question because if you don't record your answer, Mr. Leavitt's going to mark it wrong. The computer is going to mark it wrong. And this one here, this is an actual quiz question. It's going to mark it wrong unless you hit submit. So go back, hit submit, answer the question, then hit submit. Now, if you advance with an answer in there, I'm not sure if it's going to record it or not. The best practice is always hit submit. Always make sure you confirm your answer. Always hit submit. All right, so off we go. If you get it wrong, I have enabled a Fixit mechanism in here so that you can actually get it correct if you want to. If you want to just say, I don't really care. It'll say, yeah, you got this wrong. Hey, deadbeat, you got this wrong. Are you going to do anything about it? If you want to do something about it, go back, find the right answer, submit again, and see if you got it right. And it'll tell you, yeah, you got it right. Celebration, balloons, confetti, and off you go. So you do get to go back and fix it if you got it wrong. All right, so make sure you can take advantage of that. That's that back arrow over there. Here is the video. This is the guy who asks you to imagine the nuclear bomb if it were dropped on Manhattan. All right, in New York City. So he has, in this video, they draw a dot in the middle of Manhattan, which is pretty much, for all intents and purposes, think of it as Central Park, New York City. So if they dropped a nuclear bomb in Central Park, he tells you what happens in 2 miles, what happens in 4 miles. Now he's talking about a radius. The radius of a circle is from the center to any given point. So the diameter is twice the radius, right? So if it's a 2-mile radius, it's a total of 4 miles in diameter. So you'll see the radius versus diameter in all of my questions, and that's what we're thinking about here. Radius and diameter. All right, think of them. So this one, when you're done the video, this is a 4-question quiz. So you have to advance and submit. Question 2, submit. Question 3, submit. Question 4, submit. All right, so make sure that you record each one of these as you go through. This is kind of like the final test of this Nearpod with 4 questions in it. This question number 2 has more than one correct answer. When it says select all that apply, I can't believe how many of you got this wrong last week on my fun stuff assessment. I specifically said this question is worth 20 points and you get 5 points for each question that is correct. And that was a hint, and I said it right in the question, hint. There are 4 options, A, B, C, and D. Select all that apply. Hint, this question is worth 20 points, and each correct answer is worth 5 points. You should have read right into that. I don't think any one of you, I don't think a single student clicked on all 4. I had a lot of students click on 1. And I had a lot of students click on 3, but I don't think I had a single student click on 4. And I specifically said, each correct answer is worth 5 points. 5 times 4 equals 20. If you're going to get 20 points for this question, you just needed to have clicked on all of the answers. Now, this question right here only has some of them correct, but there is more than one. All right, so think about which ones of these are correct, because it says select all that apply. All right, so that's question number 2. If you do not get 100%, go back and fix it. All right, and before you can look on this here, I'm going to quickly advance off of it because that showed you the answer to question number 2. Oh, dang, you guys can hit pause. I forgot that. Do not hit pause, that's cheating. Go back and fix it. Figure it out for yourself. If you don't get 100% on that quiz, go back and fix it. All right. What might the world look like if Russia or one of the Axis powers had developed atomic weapons before the United States? Explain. All right, so this is one of those. It's got that little icon up here. It'll read it for you. So you can have it read it for you if you can't read that, but that's a pretty short sentence, all right? So give me a good answer. This is one of those open-ended questions. Hit submit. Thank you. That's the end. Now, I'm not sure if you guys get to have this option here. Down here below, there's an option that shows you all the slides, so you'll be able to show. If you come back in later, if you lost the video, if your mom calls you to supper right now, and you need to watch that video, you're going to be looking for slide number 28. So if this option is available to you and you've already done the Nearpod, you can just open this up, go straight to number 28 and watch the video, because you're going to have to watch the video. You're going to have to think about this video when you answer the Thursday Fun Stuff assessment questions. All right, so that's done. Your windows, if you look up here at the top, your windows are still open, because when it opened Nearpod, it created a new window. So I think right about here you can see my Nearpod window. Click back on your Canvas window. This screen will still be there. Scroll down and hit next. All right, because I had to scroll this up a little bit to get down here to my next button. So hit the next button and you're right at the quiz. Thursday Fun Stuff assessment. It's worth 50 points. For you U.S. history students, it's going to say mod 14. World history is mod 23A. So that tells me, 23A tells me that you are doing a 5-lesson week. You got 5 lessons in module 23. Lessons 4 and 5 are going to be next week. This is lessons 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to find something for you to do for Friday in my world history. But U.S. history, you're finishing all of the 1960s in 1 week here. So your mod 14 Fun Stuff assessment is here, and on Friday you're going to have a module test. So take the test. Question number 1 is going to ask you the popsicle stick number. We haven't got there yet. All right, but here's question number 1. Don't forget, write down the popsicle stick number. If you're not going to take the test right now, as soon as you're done this video, write it down. All right. If your memory ain't that good, write it down. You're also going to need to have an access code. Watch for it. Next, it says, for full marks on these 3 questions here. So that was 5 points. Getting the popsicle stick is 5 points. Each one of these essay questions, reflections, are worth 15 points each. So we're going to have 3 reflection questions where you have to think about what I'm going to ask you. And in these reflections, I'm going to start marking grammar mistakes. So proofread your work. Your answer will be graded for spelling, grammar, and punctuation with 2 points lost for each mistake. The reason I'm doing this is because last week on your Newsella reading, I did not tell you I was going to start marking grammar, and I got stuff like this. This is garbage. Look at this. There's a 10-point question here. If I were to take 2 points off for every spelling mistake that I saw, this one is just a sampling. It was pure garbage that came in. I am not going to read garbage anymore. I am going to start taking 2 points off for every missed capital letter. I'm going to take 2 points off for every missed apostrophe. I'm going to take 2 points off for every missed word. All right? So on this Newsella question, and I did not have to look very far to find this. And whoever wrote this, you know who you are. But there are, out of 150 students, probably 40 of you who write this badly. So if you want to get your 10 points and you are not an English language learner, I'm going to be a little easier on my students that are learning English. All right? Because their grammar can be bad. But even if you're learning English, you do know that I is a capital I. All right? Use the shift key. And sentences start with capitals, even if you're speaking Spanish, French, Creole, or whatever. So, watch your grammar. Check your spelling. Watch for apostrophes and commas. Because on this question here, 2 points off for not capitalizing I. 2 points off for not doing an apostrophe. 2 points off for forgetting a word. I don't even know what word's missing there. I can't even imagine what word is missing in this sentence. 2 points off for not capitalizing Russians. America is capitalized. United States has a capital U and a capital S. All right? Don't forget to capitalize proper nouns. And another missing capital I. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This person gets 0 out of 10. It was a perfect answer. Assuming that the word you missed was what I think it was, this is exactly the answer I'm looking for. But it was painful to read it. Don't put me through this kind of pain. I suffer immensely when people butcher the English language and grammar. All right, so don't make me suffer, because when I suffer, I take points off. 2 points for every time I feel a pain inside me because you didn't use the shift key. All right, got it? Whew. I feel so much better. I had to rant. All right, on slide 28, this is question number 2, the first reflection. On slide 28, there is this video. This is that guy, all right? And he's talking about a scenario where a nuclear bomb is dropped on New York City. In the video, the commentator speaks of each different blast radius as follows. Number 1, within 1,000th of a second, reaching 2 miles in every direction, that's the radius, 4 miles across, that's the diameter. What happens? All right, he's going to tell you that. Within 4-mile radius, what happens? He tells you that in the video, so you're going to have to watch it. You might have to watch it again. If you didn't write it down the first time you watched it, you're going to have to go back and find slide 28 and watch it again and tell me and know what happens within these radii. All right, extending to a 6-mile radius, extending to an 10-mile radius, extending to a 16-mile radius, and beyond 16 miles. All right, so in a nuclear war, South Florida has 2 of the most used ports, 2 of the largest ports that serve the Western Hemisphere are in Fort Lauderdale and Miami. 2 airports that serve the Western Hemisphere, and particularly the Miami airport serves Latin America, almost all of South America. Any business that they do with North America, they land in Miami. We're the banking center, we're the financial center here in South Florida. And now, in a real scenario, if they've got 300 bombs to throw at us, whoever's going to throw bombs at the United States would probably put 1 bomb on Fort Lauderdale, 1 bomb on Miami. But if all it would take, seriously, when you talk about this video, is 1 bomb. So they would logically, if they only had 1 bomb and they were rationing their bombs, and they wanted to do the most damage, they would drop the bomb on Fort Lauderdale, because look at these blast radiuses. All right, when you think about that, if they wanted to do the most damage with 1 bomb, they would only need 1. Because this 25-mile radius, this is that outer yellow circle, this picture here is about 50 miles from top to bottom. And so you can see the end of the population center down here. That's the southern population center, southern end of populated area in Miami. You can definitely see the Everglades. And if you look at this 12-mile circle, I'm going to have to get really accurate here. If you look at this 12-mile radius from the epicenter, which is the high-rises in Fort Lauderdale. So if this red dot here in the middle is the high-rises in downtown Fort Lauderdale, the 4-mile radius is right on top of our house. So Mr. Rowe and I, this is this question here. What would happen to Mr. Leavitt and Mr. Rowe if the bomb was dropped on the high-rises in Fort Lauderdale? So make it real. Tell me, what would life be like after the bomb for Mr. Leavitt and Mr. Rowe and our house and our trucks and cars and our trailer and everything we love in this world 4 miles from the bomb if the bomb was targeted at the high-rises in downtown Fort Lauderdale? Now, you look at the 12-mile circle, that's Coral Springs High School. Yeah, probably down by there. 12-mile circle is Coral Springs High School. How far are you from the high school? All right, are you further out from the high school, or are you closer in from the high school? Or do you live kind of right at the high school area? So that's the 12-mile radius. And at the top of the picture and the bottom of the picture, that's the 25-mile, top, bottom. That's the 25-mile radius. All right, so question number 2, says what would happen to Mr. Leavitt and Mr. Rowe in their house. Question number 3 asks what would happen to you if you lived at 12 miles, which is the high school. And question number 4 asks what would happen two people right at the top of the picture, here, 25 miles away. All right, those are the three questions, just to make sure you watch the video and just so you think in capacity of what would happen to the 6 million people who live here. We're the 7th largest metropolitan area in the United States. 6 million people live in South Florida. All right, so we're definitely going to be in the top 300 bombing cities list, right? All right, so this is why, and I don't want to be morbid by asking you this question, but this is why the 1960s were as weird as they were. We were in a war with Vietnam. Everybody was saying, use the nuke, use the nuke, use the nuke, knowing full well that if this was a proxy war, we weren't at war with Vietnam. We were fighting communism in Vietnam. This was the containment policy of Truman, right? Followed off by Eisenhower after that. We had to contain communism where it was. So Vietnam and Korea were not about freeing Vietnam and Korean people. It was much bigger than the Vietnamese people and the Korean people. It was about, is communism going to conquer our way of life? And these bombs were sitting out there. In the 1970s, there were, I've got it written in here in the question somewhere, 70,000 bombs or something like that in the 1980s, before we started the disarmament talks. Now we've only got 3,750 bombs in the world. 3,750 bombs that would do this kind of damage if just one of them were dropped. And we've got 3,750 of them in the world. And they've got half and we've got half. So if we aimed 1,800 bombs at each other, and they both passed each other over the Arctic Ocean and landed on the other side of the world, we would have 1,800 destruction sites like this in North America. All right. This is why life in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s was shaped. This is what shaped life in the 1950s and 60s. It was pervasive. Nobody did anything without thinking this scenario in the back of their mind. All right. So this is how I tell who did what on the quiz. This is the non-quiz activity. So if you did a poll or if you did a long answer question, this is that 100% participation. I'm an ideal student. I have 100% participation because I did every poll and I answered every free form essay question. All right. On the quizzes, where the actual computer algorithm can say you got it right or you got it wrong, and I gave you the chance to actually go back and fix it. 100% participation means that you did every question, but down here, I get to see if you got the questions right or wrong. I actually covered up the answers here with yellow boxes so that you didn't copy my answers. Remember, I do remember that you have a pause button on your video, right? YouTube does freeze the frame. So here I protected all of my correct answers with yellow boxes. But here is the single answer quiz. Here is the 4-answer quiz question. So I get to see whether you got these right or wrong. So make sure you get them right because there's no excuse for getting them wrong. It will show me on the right-hand side, right here, how many attempts you made at it. So where it says 100% over here, it tells me also that it took you 2 attempts to get that right, or it took you 3 attempts to get it right. But I don't care how many attempts you make. I just care that at the end, there's a green check mark that says he or she got it right. So get them right. There's no excuse not getting them right. And so on the participation right here, this tells me how you answered the poll questions. So here's the 1, 2, 3 polling questions, one on slide 6, one on slide 10, one on slide 19. So those are the 3 polling questions. This is participation. Did you bother actually even responding to the poll? If you didn't, I'm not going to give you credit for it. I need to know that you actually engaged your brain and said, yeah, this is worth answering. All right. And on the open-ended questions, I'm actually going to read your answers. And if they don't make sense, I'm not going to give you credit for them. If you just did a copy and paste of the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, I'm not going to give you points for it. It might say you participated, yay, you did a participation, you copied and pasted a poem about a dog and a fox. But I'm not going to give you credit for it. So the 100% participation, that is not where your score comes from. That tells me something, that you actually did participate, that you did bother answering it, but on these ones, I'm going to read your answers. On the poll, I'm going to say, wow, that person's an idiot. They want that on the poll. So think about the polling question, because it's going to affect my opinion of you as a person, how you answered the polling questions. Because if you are like, oh my God, I have a sociopath in my classroom, then don't look like a sociopath. Because there's no winking emoji here to say, I'm just kidding, Mr. Leavitt, I'm going to think you're serious. Okay, so if you answer the questions like a sociopath, I'm going to say, oh my God, they need to send a social worker to that house. This kid is like off his nut, or her nut. All right, so don't make me freak out on the polling, okay? I need to think that you're a nice person. All right, so here's the 3 open-ended questions, slide 7, slide 29, and slide 33. All right, so this is how I get to see it. Now we actually get to draw the popsicle stick. No, this is not a popsicle stick house, but this is where I'm going to draw the popsicle stick number. And the popsicle stick is number 19. All right, so you got that? 19. Now let's talk about this house. For a paltry $18 million, you can buy a bomb shelter house in Las Vegas. So not only are you going to be 2 miles from the strip, but you're going to be safe when the nuclear bomb is dropped on Caesar's Palace. Okay? This house, on the street level, it looks like a little teeny tiny, quaint house. But once you get inside the house, you drop down into this bomb shelter in an elevator. This is a concrete ceiling, and it has computer programs that run the lighting. So that you think, oh, it's morning time, because the lighting comes on according to a clock that says dawn is at 7 o'clock. Bingo! The lights come on at 7 o'clock. And the evening sun moves, so you see the sun change the lighting on the other side. So there's a way, pretty amazing what you can do for $18 million. Yes, the lawn is AstroTurf, because there is no natural daylight in a bomb shelter. So they made it look like a house. So this is actually a bungalow in the middle of the yard. So the bunker itself is massive. And the bungalow is in the middle of this make-believe yard with a swimming pool, wonderful concrete trees with silk leaves. So yeah, whatever you want, you can buy with money. So this is a legacy of the 1970s. This is how life was shaped by the threat of nuclear war. Remember, it was the 1980s before we started getting rid of the 70,000 nuclear warheads. So in the 1970s, when this was built, there was this constant threat of how many more nuclear bombs are they going to freaking build? Because 70,000 nuclear bombs is enough to destroy our planet and Mars and several planets, and we could send them to Jupiter and destroy Jupiter, because 3,000 bombs is enough to destroy the world. So why don't we just settle on 3,750 bombs in the world? Because that's plenty enough to destroy the world once. We don't need to destroy the world 35 times. So let's get rid of all of the excess bombs and just keep enough that we can destroy one world rather than destroy 35 worlds. Okay? Yeah, that was the 1970s. It was nuts. All right, the access code for the quiz is fun stuff, no space. Same as last Thursday's fun stuff. So the quiz this week is, yes, Thursday fun stuff assessment is still access code fun stuff. No space, no caps. All right, enjoy it. Thanks.